Welcome back. We're going to spend a few minutes in segment 2 on chapter 1 talking about the difference between managers and leaders. It doesn't, some academics feel like it's more semantics. If you talk about individuals that have been out in the workplace or out in the real world working, they will tell you that there tends to be a difference between managers or managements and leaders and leadership. And that difference, while it may be subtle, we're going to try to use the textbook to kind of educate or try to ferret out some of those differences so that you'll have an idea as they go through the textbook what they're talking about. And so managers typically, if you're in a management situation and you're like a supervisor or you're a manager, you're more concerned with efficiency in terms of dealing with people and cost. And when you say cost, you're talking about budget constraints. You're managing a budget. You're talking about equipment, operational type aspects of a production process. If you've got various systems in order to accomplish organizational goals. And what I've always found with supervisors and managers is they tend to perfect policies and procedures, and they perfect these policies and procedures and they set them on the shelf, and that's what everybody's supposed to follow. And once they get these perfected and they've got them in place so that they're hitting their annual goals, and they're ready at that point to sit back and it's more of a status quo for them at that point. Again, they're more you find this especially in production type processes. You find it especially in healthcare. You find it in the operational side of the house where, they're managing, flow of paper. They're managing a healthcare paid claim system. They're handling, day-to-day operational type aspects. And they always, at least in my experience in working with them, their attitude has been, the status quo. It's like, you've heard it's, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You hear them say that, you ask them about something, they say, well, this is the way it's always been done. Well, okay, so it's the way it's always been done. That doesn't mean that you can't improve on the way that, you do a certain process. And where you find the difference, at least from my perspective, and I think the authors in the book's perspective, is the difference between, the managers and leaders, where managers like to keep things kind of status quo, especially on an operational process. Leaders are changing and challenging the status quo. Okay, we're doing it this way. We're doing A, B, and C this way today. What if we did D, E, and F? And trying to get individuals, trying to incentivize and motivate them to change processes, it's extremely difficult. And I can go back to my experiences. Again, managers that I've had, that again, status quo, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And it's almost like management by exception. The only way that they will be willing or incentivized to make a change in a process or procedure is if they start having, customer complaints. So they're trying to manage by exception. And I used to have the individual was a CFO, and his favorite term was, it is what it is, but what it is ain't good. And that was always when you were talking about financial aspects, and you were talking about strategy, and you were talking about operational aspects, he would throw that out. And while it sounds kind of goofy, it was actually relatively commonsensical, because it was, here, it is what it is. That's the process we've got, but that process isn't good, and we need to change it. And when he started talking in those terms, you knew that he had found, he had gone into the operational process and he had found an opportunity to change it. And that is the example of a leader. A leader in a leadership role is constantly trying to improve. They don't like the status quo. They don't make changes just to make changes, but they make changes if they think there's an operation to make the entire team more productive, to reallocate resources or reposition resources in such a way that it can be more efficient and more effective for the overall team. As I said, leaders are constantly trying to make improvements. At Blue Cross Blue Shield, I actually sent probably half a dozen of my team to Lean Six Sigma training. It was, it's expensive for the company, but I could see in the long run, if we had individuals trained in Lean Six Sigma, that it would greatly enhance our ability to change processes and procedures, to become more efficient, and to actually make it easier and more efficient for the team to meet our annual goals. And it worked exceedingly well once those individuals became Lean Six Sigma certified. One of the things that I've always had in my management teams as we're trying to improve processes is I would have as an annual goal that every individual on the team had to identify at least one process improvement on a quarterly basis to meet that annual goal. So all they had to do, and I didn't care I wasn't as concerned with the scope of the improvement as that they were thinking and trying to identify ways to become more efficient. And when they first start out, they think, man, 4 a year, that's almost impossible. But once they get into that mindset and start continually looking at the way we could change policies and procedures to be more efficient and more productive, they started getting into the swing of things. And a lot of individuals didn't stop at 4. I had one individual that was consistently hitting 12 to 15 process improvements on an annual basis because they were constantly thinking about, here's how we're doing it now. Is there a way we can change and make things more efficient and better? Also, that you'll find yourself, or at least I found myself, changing my metrics on my annual goals to make them more definitive, to make them the black and white. You either hit the annual goal or we didn't hit the annual goal. If we didn't hit the annual goal, here's why. And if we missed an annual goal, which fortunately we never did, but if we had missed the annual goal, and we came close a couple of times missing annual goals, but it gave us the opportunity to identify, as you come close to missing an annual goal, it gives you the opportunity to identify some opportunities to make change. And the textbook talks about leaders make decisions, whether risky or unpopular, because they think it is an opportunity to improve processes and procedures. Just kind of as a side note, the individual I reported to at Blue Cross had come from, so Blue Cross Blue Shield is a nonprofit organization, nonprofit health plan. And my direct supervisor and I had both come from for-profit health plans, and he'd been there, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, and he started seeing individuals starting to leave work, like 3:30 in the afternoon, and he was trying to figure out what's going on. I mean, the office hours were 8 to 5, and yet they're leaving at 3:30, and then he started seeing some of them leaving at 3 o'clock, and come to find out that in that Buffalo market, and it goes back to situations in the Buffalo market, most of the individuals had grown up in a family where at least one of the parents, or maybe both parents, had been members of a union shop. And their parents were used to working a shift from 7 to 3:30, 7 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon. They took a 30-minute lunch, and they were out the door at 3:30. And they were home by usually 3:45, 4 o'clock, and they had the rest of the day to do whatever they wanted to. And a lot of these individuals that came to work for us in Buffalo had that same mindset. They had seen that mindset with their parents, and they decided that, hey, I'll come into work. Doesn't matter that the business hours are 8 to 5. I'll come into work at 7 o'clock, and I'm going home at 3:30 every day, even though there's people scheduling meetings and individuals need to talk to them after 3:30. And you had some of them that decided that they were going to just eat lunch at the desk and leave at 3 o'clock. They worked through lunch. At least that was their concept. And when direct supervisor decided to change that, he made a decision that, I need everybody here from 8 to 5. I need somebody here from 8 to 5 in case we need individuals for meetings. And it was like you were asking them to give up their firstborn. I mean, it was almost like a mutiny, but it didn't really matter because he had decided that's what it needed to be. And that's where we moved forward. And once people got used to those 8 to 5 hours and, taking an hour lunch, they didn't think they needed an hour lunch. But what we started doing was giving them during that hour lunch, suggesting when we had a gym in the building, suggesting maybe go down to the gym and, walk on the treadmill for a while, or, do a, elliptical or stair climber or something, just to kind of work yourself, kind of clear your mind. Walk around the building, get out. Our building was downtown, so get out and walk around downtown, maybe go out and grab a sandwich at a food truck, but get away from your desk and give your mind the opportunity to kind of settle down and move back into situations. But again, that is a typical situation where a leader made a decision. And was it unpopular? Yes. Was it risky? Yes. He stood the risk of alienating his team. But at the end of the day, his rationale and his approach to managing that expectation worked out for the better. And then they bang on in the book about talking about your title makes you a manager, your people make you a leader. And I think that is an excellent quote from the book, and one that everybody needs to remember that wants to get into a role as a leader, especially if you're trying to climb that corporate ladder. It's your team that's going to make you a leader. It's your team that's going to help you succeed and excel. It's the team you build. You want their respect. You want them to be willing to follow you. And your capabilities as a leader are going to determine whether they are willing to follow your directions and willing to help you become more successful. And then finally, the book talks about organizations need both managers and leaders. And that is a very true statement. And in some instances, the manager and the leader can actually be one person. You need an individual that has the ability to get down in the weeds, the expertise to get down in the weeds, the financial understanding and the foundation and like critical management theory to get down in the weeds, but also have that visionary aspect and that ability to develop strategies and to implement strategies and to move a team forward. And that is, to me, that is the best kind of a leader that has both of those capabilities, the manager type capability that can get down in the weeds and make sure the processes are efficient and productive, but also have that visionary aspect and that ability to help move a team forward, to help mentor, to help motivate, and to be able to help affect change in an organization to become more efficient and more profitable. With that, we're going to end this segment 3 of chapter 1, and be back in a few minutes, and we'll launch back into segment 3. Talk to you soon.